Here we go.
Hey, what's going on, guys? And welcome back to the GM. It is your Gabu Lange. Up next on the GM, the Monday after, where we discuss all the biggest matchups from Sunday slate of games. Do me a quick favor as we get started, hit like. If it is your first time checking out the GM, hit subscribe. Also hit the notification bell so that you get updates when we upload new content. Let's talk about it. So Sunday slate of games is in the books. We got two more games remaining tonight, which we'll talk about later on in this video. But let's get to the Sunday slate of games, biggest matchups that we identified last week. And we'll put the Ravens versus the Bengals last. Got to say the best for last. First up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, this is a game where I predicted that the Jacksonville Jaguars would win at home against Kansas City. And of course, that did not happen. In fact, I think I overestimated both of these offenses' output. I predicted the score would be somewhere in those mid 20s, and that Jacksonville would put up some points late to pull away. That did not happen. Kansas City won this game 17-9. And neither offense really got on track or really had a great performance. The Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes had 300 plus yards passing. They had, a solid effort running the ball. Jacksonville never really got on track, never really did a whole lot to announce themselves into this game. And Kansas City just kind of held them off, played solid defense, which is, you know, kind of not the normality for the Chiefs, but they did what they had to do, got the win. They go to 1-1 and are tied for the top of their division with the Oakland Raiders. Jacksonville, I'm not sure what they do after yesterday's output. Again, it's just the second week, but everything is the exact same from last year. In fact, Calvin Ridley was supposed to give a boost to this offense, so I'm not sure if it was just an off day by Trevor Lawrence or if play calling was off, weather was off. I don't know, but Jacksonville has to go back to the drawing board and see what they can get done in week number 3. So that put us at 0-1 for our predictions. Let's go to last night's matchup, the Miami Dolphins versus the New England Patriots. This game was close throughout. Miami never really got a full flow offensively, from what I can tell. Um, they made some big plays and then had some incompletions, and it just didn't seem like Miami really got into a flow of the offense. But they did pull out a win 24-17, which is very similar to the score that we predicted here at the GM. Tua, was still efficient as normal, had I think 240 plus yards, one touch, one interception. So just kind of an average game, far from his week 1 output. But the Miami Dolphins did what they needed to do to get the win. New England had some chances to close the gap in this game, make it even more competitive, but they just never could do the things necessary to get the win. So Miami goes to 2-0 and move to the top of the AFC East division. Um, Now for Baltimore, because Baltimore is the best for last. The Baltimore Ravens go into the Cincinnati Bengals on yesterday and pull out a win. And in fact, I know the score was 27-24, I believe, if I'm remembering it correctly, which is very close to what we predicted here at the GM. So we really been killing it with the predictions and the score projections and all those kind of things. But if you go back and watch Keys to Victory, the Baltimore Ravens did exactly what we said they needed to do to win this game. One, on defense, they had to stop the run. They did that. Number two, they had to um, switch it up in the secondary, and they did that, resulting in a great interception for Geno Stone as the Bengals were driving in for the touchdown. And the number three, um, they didn't get to the quarterback a whole lot, but Jadeveon Clowney did make a timely sack to kill the momentum. So they hit all three keys that we projected that they had to have to win this game defensively. Um, and they just kind of kept the Bengals off kilter yesterday. They never really got into a full-fledged rhythm. Um, and so the defense did what they were supposed to do. Hats off to the defense and Mike McDonald and his scheme. When we jumped to the offensive side of the ball, we had three keys for the offensive side of the ball, and the key was to what? Establish the run, and they did that. They had a host of runners. Um, Lamar had about 60 yards. Gus Edwards had about 60 yards. Justice Hill had about 40 something. I can't remember exactly his numbers, but all of these guys were productive in the run game, totaling 178 yards, 4.8 yards a carry. All metrics that we said that they needed to hit, they did hit those. Key number two was the quick passing game. Definitely saw Lamar Jackson getting the ball out of his hands. Again, I think yesterday was Lamar Jackson's best performance in totality as a quarterback. Yeah, he may not have had the gaudy stats. He didn't have 4 touchdowns and all those kind of things, but he did everything he needed to do to win this game. Um, and then the third key or the number one key, whichever way you want to look at it, don't do stupid stuff. And there was a couple of um, silly plays, a couple of by Justin Metabuke, two personal penalties that was unforced. You know, I know he was just trying to make a play, but still plays that were costly, kind of kept drives alive and things like that. But other than those two, um, holistically, we did what we were supposed to do. Hats off to the offensive line. Even with replacement parts, they stood up. You know, established the run game, gave Lamar Jackson time to pass the ball, did not give up a sack. So hats off. Lamar Jackson got busy in the run game. He totaled it 12 times. I don't like the 12 carries. I really, really don't. I did see a couple of called runs, but it is what it is. I'm not going to complain. But on those running plays, I did see Lamar taking on some contact that I don't really like to see, especially this early in the season. This is just a um, week two game. I don't want to see those plays of desperation. I would much rather him pick up the 10 yards and get down versus, get tackled from behind. All those things can kind of cause freak kind of injuries. I would much rather see him get to the bounds and get out of bounds, things like that. Uh, but it is what it is, man. If Lamar Jackson's gonna scramble, now most of his run plays were scrambles for sure, but I did see some called run plays. I want to cut back on that. But everything else, man, was perfect performance. I thought the play calling, both offensively and defensively, were really, really good. I thought everybody did their part. The one big question mark coming out of this game is Odell Beckham Jr.'s health status. He was looking really well when he first got started yesterday. 3 catches, 29 yards, and then he goes down with an ankle injury. So don't know how long he'll be out. But in my personal opinion, my personal preference, I would automatically hold him out for week number 3. This is no slight or knock to the Indianapolis Colts. I just think that if he was injured enough not to come back in this game, then let's give him 2 weeks for him to get healthy and maybe come back for the Cleveland game, which could be a revenge game. uh, Nothing would be better than Odell Beckham go back to Cleveland and have a big time game to get a little bit of revenge on the Browns. But that's not here nor there right now. We're just celebrating week 2, man. So, man, I just shout out, man, the whole team. It was a really, really great victory. I do want to say one thing. To all those people who are saying, I see all the reports and the headlines that the Baltimore Ravens held off the Bengals. I don't think they held off the Bengals. I think they won this game handily, although the score doesn't look like it. Let's just call things for what they are. In the keys to victory segment that we did, remember I talked about how the Baltimore Ravens had held Joe Burrow to around 210, 215 yards. He had just a little over 220, so we were right on schedule with that. I said how they had held the Bengals under under 80 yards rushing. We were right on pace with that. And then I also talked about how the Baltimore Ravens had basically held them to 20 points, and we were right on schedule with that. Well, hold on, Belanger. They scored 24. No man, no sir. Excuse me. No ma'am and no sir. They did not score 24 points offensively. That one touchdown was an 81 yard punt return touchdown, which we normally don't give up. If you take those 7 points off, they're right at 17, which is kind of the points that they had been in last year's first game, 19-17, Ravens win. Second game, they end up scoring 27 points in Anthony Brown's start. In the playoff game, it was 17-17 as we were going into score when the fumble happened. That last 7 points they scored was defensive. So if we quit giving up points that aren't earned necessarily, they would have under a 20-point average over the last four games. So looking forward to see what we can do in Baltimore against the Bengals. But we still got more work to do. Although I thought it was a great game overall, I still think there's some work we need to do. One of the first things I thought um, um, that we need to tighten up on is just getting pressure with our edge rushers. Odafe Owe did not even register a single stat. Unless I looked at the stat sheet wrong, he didn't register a single tackle or a sack, of course. And so that's concerning. That is concerning for me, him being the number one pass rusher, not even registering any stats. So that's one thing we got to tighten up on and figure out how we can get him going in that pass rush. Um, Another thing, we want to play more downhill defensively. We saw a lot of second level and third level tackles. When you look at the leading tackler from yesterday, I believe that was Ronald Darby or either Kyle Hamilton. Don't quote me on that, but I know it was a third level tackler in the secondary who was the leading tackler. Roquan only ended up with 5 tackles yesterday, and I know offenses will scheme up to keep him out of the mix, but definitely saw a lot of again second level, third level tackles. Want to kind of shore up our tackling at that first and second level. Um, and then, just offensive line wise, just we got to cut down or reduce the penalties. The one play, I think it was either late third or fourth quarter. I can't remember which quarter it was in, but Lamar Jackson had broke loose and ran the ball down to the Bengals 30-yard line, but that play was called back for holding. So we have to stop plays like that. Um, um, Simply because I think that could end up costing us when we don't become more disciplined. But with all that said, I don't think we held them off at all. I think we handled them very decidedly yesterday, and really the only way they got into the game was some costly penalties, and of course the punt return, which we do not allow special teams touchdowns and things like that. Let me give you a few shout outs as we get out of here. Shout out to Rock Yassin. Rock Yassin played Jamar Chase very well. He had 5 catches, but he was limited to 31 yards. Big time play by Rock Yassin when the ball was going to Chase. Chase basically had the ball in his hands, and Rock was in perfect position, knocking the ball away. Shout out to Ronald Darby, still playing downhill, making big tackles. Shout out to Kyle Hamilton making big tackles. And last but not least, shout out to Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers for the big downfield connection, which is what's going to happen is they're going to make defenses have to decide how they cover Zay Flowers, and when they make a decision to have to double Zay Flowers and things like that, that should open up things for Mark Andrews. Rashad Bateman, so on and so forth. One more thing. Excuse me. Shout out to Nelson Aguilar who came uh, in the clutch, man, and performed very well in the replacement of Odell Beckham. So shout out to Nelson Aguilar, man. So listen, I'm your guy Boulanger. Let me know what you want me to know, man, about yesterday's games. Stay tuned, man, for tonight's matchup, uh, AFC North rivalry, the Browns versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, we predicted that the Browns would win this game. Um, in big fashion. That will move us to 3-1 on the week. But hey, I'm okay with just being 2-1 right now in the predictions, especially since the Baltimore Ravens got that big win. I'm Boulanger. This is the GM, and we're out.